All right, and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today we're absent Abel Perez, but we hope to see him here next week. So this week, what do we got going, Rohi?
Just like the title, Into the Woods. So, I mean, Jose, we didn't do a video last week. Where were you? What was going on?
Well, you're right about that. I was into the woods. I was actually at a camping trip here with my kids through Campfire. That is a local chapters here within our region that meet up at Camp Adahi up in the up by Oakhurst here. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I got to tell you that it was quite an experience just knowing that I'm up there not only with my kids, but you know the activities that are structured within Campfire. It's actually something that I think a lot of kids should be exposed to. But I had a great time out there. I was out there for a week just exploring the nature, working with kids. At the same time, just seeing my kids develop into young counselors and leaders is priceless. So that was my venture this last week. What about you? How was your week?
Obviously we had, since we've been gone, we've had an attack on our president.
Oh, yeah.
Your president, I'm sure.
That was very funny because that Sunday, I got there Saturday.
Yeah.
And Sunday, we're out of the any reception area, so I don't have my phone on. But someone had gone into town, came back, and they said, "Hey, there's an attempted assassination on former President Trump." And I go, "What? Really? All this happened? I just left, and this is happening." And then a week later from Sunday, you hear President Biden drops out. So there's quite a bit to cover within that week. So that's why we titled it Into the Woods.
Yeah.
So let's start off with that, Roy. I wasn't here Sunday. I didn't get to see all the video and all, but what was your reaction when you saw that?
So we had just completed a CCW class. So, I mean, we're coming out of that, and I remember I was sitting down with the other guy, my instructor, and I was like, "Hey, something popped on my phone, like Trump's been shot at." He's like, "What?" Nah, So some of the videos started popping up, and it's like, I'm gonna go home and see what's going on. And I remember watching the first videos, and it was definitely moving. It was like, wow, this really happened, And I got a little group that we can stay in contact with, and all of a sudden started firing off. Everybody's, "Oh, did you see this? Did you see this part? This is what they think happened." And it was a bit crazy, I'll admit, for a little while there.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously, I don't think I was in a place to really get too political. I don't think any of the people there were really too political. But obviously, you heard hey, there was an attempt on his life, right? And you could only imagine what some of the his group is feeling like, right? And then what the other groups are feeling like. I mean, could this be good?
Yeah.
I mean, could this be bad? And you start thinking of that. Well, shoot, if this is a very contentious battle already between both, at that time, Biden and Trump, well, it doesn't really look that it's going to be good. If you thought there was a divide now, an attempt to assassinate a president, obviously it doesn't really sit well with the party supporting that president. And that's all I could think about, right? So I didn't really want to get too caught up in it. So later that week, I called my wife and I said, "Hey, did you hear about this? What's going on?" "Oh, yeah, it's all over the news, blah, blah." Okay. So I just kind of, well, save it. I want to see what the deal is. And you started hearing right away, you started seeing a lot of these reels come out or memes, that in support of, hey, this is the type of president. And then again, you had, "Oh, I don't know about that. That could have been a conspiracy." But I didn't want to get too much into the details as far as, or get into the woods too deep to see where do I stand with that. Yeah. What do I think? It's just too much information right now for me to process and make an informed decision on what I think. I can just tell you that, hey, obviously that wasn't something that we were expecting, especially this close into the game. And then come to find out a week later that there's another move. I mean, this is all done within a period of 8 days, right? Now you have President Biden stepping down, and no one thought that would happen, right? But, I mean, some people that maybe made some comments in the past said, "I told you, I predicted this to happen." And now you see that circulating in social media. So now you have President Biden stepping down and supporting Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of with Biden in regards to that is he must not have taken his COVID shot that he required the millions of people in this country to take, because if he would have taken it, according to his own words, he would have been just fine. But he's isolated and maybe dead for all we know. You know.
Yeah, and there's the shots that are coming in. So
yeah, so we'll see where that goes. But I mean, you know, like you said, the disappointing part, I think, of the Trump part of it was, you know, because the guys that I hang out with, you know, you don't trust the media. We have our own ways of figuring out what different sources, I would say. And it was amazing that here's your mainstream Fox, CNN, whoever you want to say, coming out with this, and then we would get information like completely conflicting. And eventually they would release a little bit of it. Oh, well, it wasn't that. It was, you know, it was the one guy. And oh, okay, it was. And it's like, well, wait a minute. These guys are already here like 2 hours ahead of you. They, you know, just like the picture of the shooter, you know, down. I mean, we had it like within 30 minutes of it happening, where I barely just saw it on mainstream news, because now there's conflicting arguments of whether that was the guy and did they really shoot him because it doesn't match the blood, and you know all these issues. So that's the part that's disappointing. And the other part was, you know, I remember the Super Bowl where there was a wardrobe malfunction, and the cameras amazingly cut the scene and went to something else because of that. But the Trump assassination, the camera stayed rolling.
Yeah.
There's people dying. Like somebody dies in the background, news didn't cut the feed.
Yeah.
They just kept it going, you know, which was, to me, that's when you get into the woods and you say, well, you didn't really follow policy. I mean, if this would have been anything else, you would have like right away cut to make sure we don't show anything. Maybe Trump gets shot, and you know.
Yeah. So and you know that I guess that'll bring the next question is, you know, when it comes to media, I guess it's left to your own imagination of what you want to think, right? But I mean, obviously the narrative is there, depending on who's showing you and what's being narrated, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I'm looking at a network that I follow, right, whether it's Fox, CNN, CBS, NBC, whatever, doesn't matter what it is. This isn't really to try to side with either one. It's just that if I'm listening repeatedly over and over to this network that's telling me this narrative, I'm gonna somehow it's gonna shape the way I think, right? I mean, now I can be neutral, and I've learned that the media, for me at least, is not always 100% accurate.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I don't like to make, you know, these premature premature judgments on something that my head still hasn't wrapped everything around it. Well, why? You know, I have questions of, well, why would no one do this? Why would no one act on it sooner? Why would they allow this to be seen on TV? What is it that you're after? What's the ultimate goal that you're after? What narrative are you trying to promote so that people can see, right? There's a psychology behind the media too. So whether you write papers, whether you cast these or you put them in videos, you're trying to deliver something. It's persuasive.
Yeah.
So I don't like to just watch and then make my decision and my judgment based on that. I go, well, let me see the other side.
Yeah.
And then I see two sides. And, well, I'm still not convinced, you know. And that's kind of the way I work. But, you know, for the most part, I mean, we get our news in really small bites. Mm-hmm. And those small bites, that's all we have to share with our friends. So did you hear about such and such? Well, he got shot. Oh, yeah. Oh, and all of a sudden we've already made a decision because we heard it from the news, and that's the source that's giving us this. Yeah. And I'm not too crazy about that.
Well, I mean, and I always remind people that, you know, for one, the media's purpose is not to report the news. It's to sell ads. That's their entire job, is to sell ads, you know. And it's always, it reminded me of that because I remember during COVID, CNN started changing how they would change segments. So when one anchor would come off and a new one would come in, they would always say the words breaking news. And I remember my dad would turn it up a little bit. But it wasn't breaking news. They were just literally transitioning to the next guy. But they knew the word breaking news was key to most people to say, let me tune back in. And then it would, you know, because it's all about ad money.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that's really the disturbing part is like CNN, who's the most trusted network in the world, was the one that first came out and said the assassination was fake. It didn't even happen. And then they had to, you know, kind of go back on that when there were dead people and the president's got a hole in his ear. And, you know.
Yeah.
So I just it's some degree it's kind of what we do bad. Like you and I in Able, we report the facts, and that's why we only get a couple of viewers instead of spitting our game of, well, this is what I think happened. It was Sasquatch who really shot the president, and I saw the fuzzy videos, and he was standing on the water tower.
That's right.
But I mean that's the disturbing part when it comes to news is there's no more facts. There's no more actual information. It's all opinion, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like I said, watching that unravel, especially the first couple hours, if you were left, this was the spin. If you were right, this was the spin. But there was zero like facts except for there was an attempt, there was somebody like dead, there was the shooter dead. And then you were left. The rest of it was just all opinion, and let me sell ad space and keep talking.
Yeah.
And
I go back to like these high-profile murders or assassinations that take place, for example, right? And you look back when President Kennedy was assassinated, right? I mean, that thing's just spun off in so many different theories, conspiracies, and what have you, and such did it. No, such and such did. There's facts here. Now there's new evidence. So, I mean, the way I look at it is our intelligence level, especially for us to create the type of technology, the type of weapons that we have, just the science behind everything that the government does, and not to be able to find out who assassinated and be able to disclose that in a way where, but it's mysterious how a lot of times we're given, we're given certain routes to follow. And sometimes I don't know if that's done intentionally, like, shit, if you distort it so much, people won't know and they won't care.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the thing is that media sometimes has a part in that. Like you said, they're there mainly, you said, to mainly create ad. I think they're mainly as a form of, I do believe there's really good journalists out there. I do believe there's good networks out there that try to do a good job of uncovering all these facts. But unfortunately, not too many people follow that.
Yeah.
And if they do, like you said, a lot of it is opinion based. Oh, what? Just this coming in? Mm-hmm. Oh, we have breaking news and such and such. Oh, Gore did not win. George Bush. Okay, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like, well, why even report it? Just call it what it is. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's entertainment for us to kind of get our, it's like when you're playing the football game, right? I mean, we get so excited at the football game, and you have a person on the back end just telling us what's taking place. Oh, touchdown, but it's not a touchdown because now it's we didn't see that. Now they did a replay, and now you saw that we have to go back. So all that excitement that we had, we thought it was a touchdown. It just happens that it's not. All the referees are in it. Yeah. There's always something there to distort your judgment based on what you see, because what we see and what we hear are two different things. Yeah. And sometimes the media plays into that, and I think they know that. So sometimes,
I mean, and you got to remember at high level politics, like when we talk about presidencies, I remind myself and I remind the people close to me that both parties are not for my best interest, regardless of what they say. They're both always representing the wealthy, and they're representing themselves. So, Trump and Kamala and Biden, they're all friends. You go look at the pictures of the Bush and Obamas, and they're hanging out, and the Clintons, they're friends because they're all in it together. They have to have this war, and well, I don't like this guy and whatever, but they're all friends. They're all in collusion together just to keep themselves richer.
Kind of reminds me of WWF. And talking about that, I think superstar Hulk Hogan was out there also promoting. It's funny to see all these entertainers come up and they're part of this whole this push for whatever candidate. Doesn't matter if you're coming for the left, right, wherever you want to go. There's always support because it helps promote the idea that this person is going to be the ideal for, and it's going to be the better person for all. But it's not. Unfortunately, it still seems like no matter who wins, there's a big side of it that also feels like they lost. And they're not happy. Yeah. So what is and you start questioning, well, is democracy where 75% of the people are good, or is it where only 50% plus one are good?
Well, that's where you get into the woods of who's voting.
So exactly. Then
like you look at California and our state right now of we're out of money and there's crime and poverty. It should be red bells going off to, well, Gavin probably won't make the election, but he probably will. And you go,
Yeah.
who voted for this guy? Like,
Yeah.
who says the majority of them? I am excited for what he's doing for
Correct.
our
Yeah.
our
Well,
community.
again, and it goes to our system. Like when it comes to presidential elections, it's the electoral college, right? And it's not if the majority wins, everybody wins. You give all that to that one presidential candidate. So I agree. I mean, a lot of times we're not. It's not necessarily I mean, I'm not gonna say it's to them they call it fair, but to me, it's not necessarily representative of what you feel and your values. Are they representing my values? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
And the majority can only be 50% plus one, or whoever has, who's voting, right? And then you may have an overwhelmingly amount of people that are blue that may be able to dictate how the governor is selected, right?
Yeah.
But getting into the woods, I mean, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about is, within these 8 days, again, not only was I in the woods, but we come back and we hear all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And like entertainment, I think, these networks do play a big part in rallying up your fan base, right? You have CNN rallying up maybe the left. You have Fox News and other networks rallying up the right. And at the end of the day, Rohi, who wins though? Mm-hmm. Who wins? I mean, it doesn't matter what party wins, like you said. At the end of the day, a lot of these folks are coming from an elite class. It's not like they're coming from your middle class. Like Rohi decided to run for president because he represents not only the middle class, represents the values of if it's religion based or whatever the case may be. You worked your way through.
Yeah.
That's not who's running.
No.
And then who's supporting you, by the way? Are the people really supporting you, or are bigger PACs supporting you? And then that's the other question is, well, if I'm getting money from a lot of these multi-billion-dollar companies, then do I owe loyalty to the people I represent, or do I loyalty to the people that got me elected? So that's a conundrum there, and people don't see that a lot of the times you can't go back on that because you're given money for one reason, and they're lobbying you to do one thing. They need you to ally with them or help them in some capacity to exploit more money.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, isn't that the name of the game?
Yeah.
Do you disagree or agree?
No, I mean I agree, and I know that's politics in general. I mean that's how it works. I would say that, you have an understanding of that's why your local politics are more important than as you move up the political line is because I could give Donald Trump, $1 million tomorrow out of my personal account, but I'm never going to see any of that recoup. Like he may get elected, but I don't think he will directly affect my values enough to get it back. Because I'm not a corporation. He doesn't have enough interest in what I do. But that's the disconnect, is to say all these people that are supporting him and cheering, and these the guys, the nobodies that want him elected, are in some ways really never going to see the true benefit of what he may or may not do for him. I mean, so what I get just again the woods of it is understanding that like the media never portrays a way to unite us. Like we didn't come together after this event and say, hey, let's both sides, let's pray for Trump. Let's be caring about the people that lost their lives. It was already an attack on both sides. Same thing with Biden pulling out. I mean, the left wants now we have to have compassion for this old man that let him have his dignity going out. But it's like the right's all take him down and fight. It's like where's the unity? Fox News should be reporting the same thing. Like hey. We're all like Fox is about it's more Christian values. Why aren't we praying for Biden and his health? Why aren't we, there's no unity there.
Yeah,
and again, I think it's by design.
No, and I appreciate that because that's a really good point. And again, I think our task here is to really not only dive into the woods, and we too are opinion based, right? But it's because we observe, and after we observe, then we can assess. And say, man, something's just not right. If you're really trying to unify this country and you're trying to bring people together, well, we're certainly not doing it. We're not following the right path to do that. Correct. If anything, we're doing the opposite. We see these events that take place as let's use that to fuel our fan base and let them know, yeah, you know, they're shooting this guy, or yeah, this guy's dying, but no one's really thinking of the interest that lies before the people.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what about me? Okay, I do want to see somebody win that's going to have, but at the end of the day, is that going to help me in some way where I'm better off today? And sometimes I think that people don't see how far off they are, not only in the income deal, the disadvantaged communities, where they say, I know that after this vote, it's my right. I'm gonna be what? Am I gonna be richer? Am I gonna get more benefit? Or am I gonna be in the same shithole? And am I going to still continue to suffer from this economic depression or whatever the case I may have? Yeah. Am I going to be better off the next day after I know, or is it just going to be that one thrill that I get that, yes, my guy won?
Yeah.
Or my gal won?
Yeah.
Now what? Now, what do I do about the next 4 years of my life, in my economic life that I may have, that I'm struggling right now? I'm struggling. Is somehow they're going to sprinkle some more money? I mean, I know the stimulus helps some people, but not to the degree that you would think. It didn't bring people out of poverty, right? And sometimes, I mean, someone may be chanting, well, you did it the wrong way. Let me show you how. And then they show us again and nothing happens. So then we wait for another, it goes back and forth. And there's never really any solution to really help the American people. Yeah. At least the core of the people, which are your lower to middle class people that make up the core. You know?
But you know, it's a hard topic because, again, that, you know, especially lately, because again, I've been talking, more and more people are leaving California for the simple fact of the cost of living and not being able to keep up, even though they're making more money. And I think that's the realization people, it's a sad realization, but you have to have, is that we all can't be rich. We all can't have the United States of we're all millionaires. You know, when you have that abundance of wealth, then most people at this point would say, well, if I have enough money, then I'm just not going to work. And society itself would eventually just kind of crumble back because I don't need to work. I got all the money in the world. You know, I don't need a job. I don't need to do anything. I'm set. So you kind of have to have that's the demand, that starving side of it. But the other side of it is, you know, I was talking to somebody about, you know, he's looking to move, I think, to Oklahoma. And I said, yeah, but I mean, aren't you going to be making obviously a whole lot less money? He said, yeah, but when you factor in cost of living and taxes and everything that goes into it, he says, I'm making more money. I'll actually live better because my house costs less, my energy costs, everything is less, even though he's getting a third of his income. You know, so but because he's this rich California person, he's going to bring and sell his probably, you know, 3-room shack for $500,000 and take it to Oklahoma, and now he can build and buy this ranch. Great for him. What did it do to all the people of Oklahoma? You're in poverty now because you're stuck on that, you know, minimum $8 minimum federal wage. You can't afford the house anymore because home values have gone up, and that's why they hate us there. Yeah. So we can't all be rich. There has to be this balance. So I can't say I want a president who's going to make us all rich, which I think that's some of the allure of like the Biden and, you know, we're going to pay your college tuition, we're going to give you the stimulus because people think like, oh, I'm going to have all this money and I'm going to be good. Well, no, now your hamburger costs $10 instead of $4, and your gas is now $6 instead of $2, you know, and they can't see that they've actually been pushed further into poverty than they are today.
No, and that's a good point, because I think, you know, you start seeing this where I've talked to people that moved to Idaho earlier on before this exodus, and also like in other areas, Wyoming, South Dakota. And I tell them, hey, did you guys have a huge price increase in homes out there? And goes, yep. And it made it difficult for your locals, like you said, because now you have this rush of people leaving California, again, taking their money from their homes that they sold and buying up property out there like no tomorrow. Yeah. So obviously that creates a demand. People say, hey, we have a rush coming through. So now with this rush, we can create these prices due to the demand, right? But who does it price out? And typically it prices out those local residents that make that lower wage, right? And it happened, I mean, you're seeing it here in Madera. I mean, you got to look at the fact that, you know, our demographics and our incomes, And just the household median incomes can range between 70,000 to 80,000 within these 936, 37, 936, 38 areas. And at times you think, well, with that income, what can that afford you? And if you go based on, well, I mean, I'm taking this from a very good, just a standpoint where I know that's feasible. No more than 4 times your annual median income, right? Well, I mean, 70,000 times 4, 280,000. That's still fair. I mean, I still think it's on the higher side, but again, I think that's fair value so that your debt to income ratio doesn't exceed a certain amount and you're not at risk of losing your home.
Yeah.
Because any little small event can put you right at the edge where you no longer can make that payment. So, and unfortunately, we're seeing these go 5 times to 6 times the annual median income within the community, because people like in Oklahoma, they see the value in Madera and they say, well, shoot, I have a home out in the Bear that I can sell for $1 million.
Yeah.
I'll come out here and buy a couple of these investments and make everybody wants to invest. Everybody wants to be an investor.
Yeah.
And you see these influencers or these real estate investors pushing that content over and over. Well, shit, if we all had him, think about it. If we all have a primary and then we all have an investment, then yeah, you're gonna wipe out the inventory that's out there, right? Because there's a big need for inventory, and that's why you see it. We stopped building after 2008, and now we have this problem where we have no inventory. So because everybody's scooping up these rentals, these Airbnbs, then you don't leave any inventory, and the rates being so high, nobody wants to go out and turn their home and upgrade because they have such a low interest rate. Why would I want to sell my home now and put myself in a 7% mortgage when I have a 3? This just doesn't make sense. And all that stored energy is there. We're not accounting for that, and that's why you don't see the existing sales selling much more than you're seeing these new constructions.
Yeah.
But I feel it's making an impact here in Madera, because now if you want to buy a home, a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, you're looking about close to $300,000.
Yeah.
By God, I mean, that used to be like 120. You could buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath after 2000. I'm sorry, man. This is how bad
I know.
the homes came down.
Yeah.
You could buy one for 130,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, really nice home. Now, man, that made it affordable for people. But like you said, I think with inflation, just I call it helicopter money, just coming in. Obviously, it created another issue that we have today. And to control that inflation, you have to tighten up. So that's kind of into the woods. We're not trying to get too deep, because once we get too deep, we get into rabbit holes, right? We don't want to go there. We just want to hear your opinions. If you feel, just about the conversation we had today, whether it's the presidential, the market, or whatever you think is going on in our community, please feel free to comment. Roy and I would love to address some of those comments, maybe talk about some of the topics you may want us to have. But we look forward to bringing you back more content this upcoming week. We'll have Abel with us here. But I think that's it. Anything you want to add there, Roy?
No, that's it. Disconnect maybe sometimes like you and get into the woods, the real woods. So.
Yeah, and before we cut off, again, I was telling Roy, if you have kids that are interested in really getting to know the woods or the campfire environment, reach out to us. Give us a comment. We'll drop some contacts here, local chapters, depending on how old your kid is, and maybe we can get you signed up for a campfire experience. But I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, I thought campfire was strictly all girls. And again, there's Girl Scouts, there's Cub Scouts, there's all kinds of stuff, but campfire is a co-ed, and it's just very lovely experience, very structured in a way that you learn how to build things, how to do things. I had an activity with fires, so I actually learned something about fires, not only the safety component of it, but how to build a good fire so that when you're out there, not so much the survival, but just when you're out there in the woods, how you take care of the woods and how you be safe. So if you're into that stuff or you want your kids to learn that, reach out to us, drop us a name, and we'll certainly follow up and drop a contact. Other than that, I think we're good. Rohi will be disconnecting this week. Hopefully, he can let us know how his experience went. But thank you again.